So, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
So what is this? I mean, it is a tacit criticism of Trump because what's happened in this bill is that there's all this money being spent that wipes out the savings that Doge got. So it sort of zeroes it out. Imagine how devastating this has to be to Musk. And I don't think this is I just don't think that this is a good idea. And I think that we actually have some really strong conservative members in the House and in the Senate who are doing this, and they're not doing it to tank Trump. These are not rhino Republicans. These are not people. These are people that are out there that are really, supportive of Trump and of Elon Musk. Rand Paul on Sunday, Fox News said this about why he's basically against the bill as is.
I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I support making them permanent, so I support that part of the bill. I support spending cuts. I think the cuts currently in the bill are wimpy and anemic, but I still would support the bill, even with wimpy and anemic cuts, if they weren't going to explode the debt. The problem is the math doesn't add up. They're going to explode the debt by, the House says $4 trillion. The Senate's actually been talking about exploding the debt $5 trillion. This year in September, when our fiscal year ends, the deficit will be about $2.2 trillion. Now, people used to always say, the Republicans would say, well, that's Bidenomics, that's Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal.
Yeah, and I agree. And by the way, there's a great podcast. It's about roughly an hour long. Senator Ron Johnson, went on the All In podcast with Chamath Palihapitiya, and he basically said that the 1.5 trillion in savings is nonsense. Those were his, he called it BS. And here's a snippet of this.
I come with the private sector. We probably spent more time reviewing my line-by-line budget for my business, and I think other private sector businesses spend more time analyzing what they're going to spend than Congress spends over the entire federal budget. So we've got to develop a process. Doge has shown us how to do it. Go contract by contract, expose the grotesque waste, fraud, and abuse. But we got to do that through thousands of lines through the federal budget. But nobody's willing to do it. Nobody's willing to take the time to do the work to do it. They're doing what they've always done. They exempt most spending. They look at a couple of programs. They try and tweak them, try and get a big score out of CBO so they can say, hey, look, we saved $1.5 trillion. And yet that's completely divorced from reality. 1.5 trillion sounds like a lot, but over 10 years, it's 150 billion against a $7,000 billion a year budget that only 6 years ago was $4,400 billion. And if I've got one complaint in terms of the process in the House, it's basically devoid of reality. We're not talking about the numbers we should be talking about, which is a 10-year deficit projected by CBO of $22 trillion, averaging $2.2 trillion a year. We don't talk about it. Instead, we focus all on 1.5 trillion, and then they're patting themselves on the back that they didn't even achieve 1.5.
So I just want to make sure, Senator, then that we're on the same page with respect to the math. If this bill passes as is, can the general public take the 33 or 34 odd trillion that we have in debt? Should we add 22 and say we'll be at 58 trillion by 2035? Is that the right math or the wrong math?
That understates it.
that understates it. Our debt would basically double. More than double. This is not acceptable. Now, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, says that this 1.5 billion is a big deal. It's a great deal. So, it's going to happen. This is him on Sunday talking to Jake Tapper. So Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, thinks this is all really good.
This is the largest cut in spending in at least 30 years and arguably of all time. We're cutting over $1.5 trillion in federal spending while we check all the boxes and bring about a pro-growth economy. And the CBO has been panned because, as you said, they don't do dynamic scoring. What that means is they don't account for the growth that will be fostered by all the policies that are in this big piece of legislation. This is not theoretical, Jake. Just remember the last Trump administration. After the first 2 years, we brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. The growth was off the charts. It was an average of about 3% of growth in GDP. Why? Because we cut taxes and we cut regulations. We're doing the same thing this time around, but on steroids. This is a much larger package, a much more robust package with all these features that will really get the economy going.
I don't like the way he's talking. I mean, I want to support. I want to support all of this. I want to get behind it. I just don't think this is a good idea. And I think that ultimately our economy can't grow if our debt continues to spiral out of control. If we pass this bill as it stands, what will happen is, we're going to be headed to a default. Like, this is Argentina level stuff. Frightens me, and ought to frighten you too.